Okay, good afternoon. My name's Dave Mowiney, and I would like to welcome you to the grand opening of the spectacular new Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship space. We're delighted that you could all join us for this celebration. We're entering a new era of entrepreneurial excellence at Carnegie Mellon, and the new Swartz Center gives us the platform from which to achieve this goal. The Swartz Center was conceived as the community gathering space for our world-renowned interdisciplinary collaboration at Carnegie Mellon. The Swartz Center is at the geographic center of campus, and it makes it a lot easier for our engineers and our designers and our life scientists and our computer scientists and artists and business people all to gather together to innovate and create great startup companies to deliver value to our communities. Today, we thank Jim and Susan Swartz again for their transformational $31 million gift. Thank you, Jim. This gift has blessed us with this beautiful new space, but it's provided us the resource to continue and build upon our world-class entrepreneurial programming and to provide investment capital for our startups. Not only has Jim given his money, but he has spent countless hours working with our students and alums. He spent 2 hours today at lunch with our Swartz Fellows and Innovation Scholars, and he's worked with university leadership to further the Swartz Center mission. And again, thank you, Jim. We're already seeing the results of Jim and Susan's gift, and Carnegie Mellon has consistently been ranked in the top 10 of the entrepreneurial universities by Crunchbase, PitchBook, the Financial Times, Bloomberg Business Week. And we've been involved in creating over 260 startups in the last decade. Since 2011, they've raised over $1 billion. And these startups have created far more than that $1 billion of value for society. We have aspirational goals for the Swartz Center. The first is to dramatically improve access to expertise for our startups through programs like our Entrepreneur in Residence. The second is to provide more early stage funding for these startups. The third is to create bridges to Silicon Valley and to New York City, where we have tens of thousands of alums, and these are the best startup ecosystems in the world. So it will be easier for our startups to get access to that capital and provide the bridge back into Pittsburgh. And finally, we are an educational institution, and continually evolving and improving our educational offerings is very important to us. These four efforts, along with everything that's gone before, will secure our leadership position as one of the top entrepreneurial universities in the world. In conjunction with the grand opening of the Swartz Center today, we're actually celebrating science at CMU as part of our LaunchCMU showcase. You'll get to hear from 4 deep science Carnegie Mellon startups who will tell their stories today. But if you go back upstairs after this portion of the program, you'll get to see more than 30 different startups from all disciplines across the university demoing their products and services. We'd also like to thank Latham & Watkins, who have been our founding sponsor from day one. Thank you, Latham & Watkins. We literally could not do this without them. We do this event in the fall in Pittsburgh and in the spring in Silicon Valley, and we're hoping to add New York City to the tour very, very soon. Latham has represented great CMU startups like Duolingo, Solvi, and Nimbus Robotics, and a little bit later you're going to hear from Ben Potter. We'd also like to thank Oracle and Sperity, who are also sponsors of the event today. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Lori Weingart, the interim provost of Carnegie Mellon. Lori has been an active partner with the Swartz Center and its predecessors from the beginning of her time here at CMU. As a graduate student here at CMU, as a first year, Lori joined the faculty. I think I'm actually older than you, Lori. I had to say that. But she's been a great mentor to me. So please welcome Lori Weingart.
Well, thank you, Dave. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all. Last month, we were here in the Tepper building for its grand opening. We were cutting the ribbon for this magnificent new space. And it's really great to be back here today with all of you. How many of you here were here for the grand opening? Yeah, a good number. Wonderful. It's really now a time for us to celebrate the success of the Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship and all of CMU's entrepreneurship programs that connect our talent to opportunities. When the Swartz Center opened a few years ago, it brought together entrepreneurial activities from all across campus. It exemplifies Carnegie Mellon's tradition in promoting excellence in education, in our research, and in our scholarship, with roots tracing back to the old days of GSIA, when I was there, but also tracing back to the Don Jones Center, incorporating Project Olympus, and innovation activities all across campus. Our campus-wide interdisciplinary approach to learning and discovery is really deeply embedded in CMU's culture. And the Swartz Center, of course, is no exception. It has a really important place in Carnegie Mellon's present and in our future. The center provides unlimited opportunities for students and budding entrepreneurs to collaborate, to launch, and to lead, and to learn from one another. And these pursuits are made possible thanks to the strengths that define this Carnegie Mellon education. And two strengths I want to touch on, our academics and our partnerships. First, this is really an outstanding learning environment. Through the Swartz Center, Carnegie Mellon is one of the world's most robust and valuable entrepreneurial ecosystems. We have more than 1,700 CMU students are taking 50 courses. They learn from faculty and mentors who are experienced and successful entrepreneurs themselves, bringing their unique and real-world experiences into the classroom. CMU's interdisciplinary programs also bring together expertise from faculty in a variety of fields. This enriches our students' coursework, and it strengthens the connections between colleges. For example, through the Swartz Center, we launched a campus-wide course in innovation and entrepreneurial mindset, and a minor in innovation and entrepreneurship for undergraduates. And both of these are part of CMU's Ideate network, or the Integrative Design, Arts, and Technology Network. We've also added new MBA tracks, for example, in entrepreneurship through acquisition and biomedical entrepreneurship. And also graduate students in other parts of campus can develop their business acumen and engineering and design knowledge through the Master of Science in Technology Ventures degree. So these are just some of the in-demand courses and programs that are available to students in which they can unlock their potential, do the work that they believe in, and make an impact on our world. So as Dave mentioned, and others will talk about, and you will see what an impact that they've made. Our success can be attributed to this valuable partnership that we have in place at Carnegie Mellon, and we've built, reaching out into the communities. So another example, right, at CMU Silicon Valley campus, for example, the Venture Bridge Initiative is linked between the Swartz Center and the College of Engineering. That connects early stage CMU startups directly with the framework of mentors, alumni, early customers, networking opportunities, and value-added investors. And they all help new Bay Area businesses succeed more quickly. The Swartz Center is a dynamic incubator for great ideas. It's a place where inventors, mentors, and investors build strong, long-lasting relationships in local, in regional, and national business sectors. A great example, and part of this is Project Olympus. It's hosted in the School of Computer Science, or housed there. It's a vibrant incubator and a resource for all CMU students to gain critical support for their startup ideas, regardless of their majors or business concepts. And it's certainly not easy to start new businesses or summon the courage to get a business concept off the ground. And at Carnegie Mellon, entrepreneurs have the access to the tools and the support that they need to help turn their ideas into reality. So as provost and having served as Senior Associate Dean of Education at the Tepper School, I've had the opportunity personally to work closely with the entrepreneurial faculty, with the programs on campus, and I'm really proud to see how far the center has come and to hear all the great business success stories coming out of this great university. So I'm confident that the center will continue to provide what our students, our faculty, our alumni, and our community partners need to excel in their work from conception to launch. So now, without any further ado, I would love to introduce our next speaker, Ben Potter. Ben is a partner in the Silicon Valley office of Latham & Watkins, and as you know, co-sponsor of today's LaunchCMU. It's our annual showcase. Ben is co-chair of the firm's technology industry group, as well as co-chair of the firm's internet and digital media industry group. He represents emerging companies, venture capital and private equity firms, and investment banks involved in the technology, life sciences, and clean tech industries. So his practice focuses on general corporate counseling, venture capital financings, mergers and acquisitions, and public offerings. It's pretty broad, making him especially attuned to the business issues facing emerging companies today. So Ben was here last year for LaunchCMU, and we're glad that he's back at Carnegie Mellon. So please join me in welcoming Ben.
Great, thanks for that lovely introduction. I'll scratch that part out of my own speech here. It doesn't seem appropriate for me to say anything before just saying again how amazing and awesome this building and space is. Mr. Swartz, you must be so proud. I've had so much fun today just walking around and taking it all in. As was alluded to, I've had the privilege of coming to CMU now every year since 2013, I think. To participate in this event and teach a two-part course on how to form and finance company. I've found that teaching students and faculty about startup law is not easy. For training to be effective, it must be tied to real-world examples of how business is actually transacted. Over the years in teaching these courses, the hardest but also the best part of my experiences has been listening to tons of great questions from attendees, drawing on my own client and deal experiences to answer questions, and realizing with amazement, in so doing, how little I still actually know, exclamation point. With this in mind, on my flight from Silicon Valley out here, I found myself reading a book that many clients have urged me to read over the years. It's called High Output Management. It's by Andy Grove, former CEO and chair of Intel. For those of you who have not read it, it's a marvelous book. Mr. Grove concludes at the end with an appeal to the reader to indulge him and complete some assignments that he's prescribed in order to improve their own output. Output, that is, as he defines it, the sum of, number one, the output of their organization, plus, number two, the output of their neighboring organizations under their influence. To take a page from his book, literally, please indulge me as I read aloud a few of his assignments. I do believe it's going to be worth your time. So he writes at the end, "You've trusted me enough to buy my book and read it. Now let me say a final thing. If you do at least 100 points worth of what you find here, you'll be a distinctly better manager for it." He writes, 10 points. Conduct work simplification on your most tedious, time-consuming task. Eliminate at least 30% of the total steps involved. 10 points. Define your output. What are the output elements of the organization you manage and the organizations you can influence? List them in order of importance. 10 points. Describe how you'll monitor the next project you delegate to a subordinate. What will you look for? How? How frequently? 20 points. Hold a scheduled one-on-one with each of your subordinates, in parentheses. Explain to them in advance what a one-on-one is about. Have them prepare for it. 10 points. Look at your calendar for the last week. Classify your activities as low, medium, high leverage. Generate a plan of action to do more of the high leverage stuff. What activities will you reduce? 10 points. Forecast the demand on your time for the next week. What portion of your time is likely to be spent in meetings? Of these, which are process-oriented, that is information-sharing meetings, and which are mission-oriented, that is decision-making meetings? If the latter are over 25% of your total time, what should you do to reduce them? 20 points. Define the 3 most important objectives for your organization over the next 3 months and support them with key results. 20 points. Evaluate the last performance review you received and also the last set of reviews you gave your subordinates as a means of delivering task-relevant feedback. How well did the reviews do to improve performance? What was the nature of the communication process during the delivery of each? And 10 points, redo one of these reviews as it should have been done. Thanks a lot. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you, Ben. Now it's my honor to welcome to the stage the president of Carnegie Mellon University, Dr. Farnam Jahanian.
Lori, thank you very much, and Thank you for your leadership and everything that you do for Carnegie Mellon. And a very warm welcome to everyone who's gathered here to celebrate, of course, the grand opening of the Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship and its fabulous new home in the Tepper Quad. As a number of you mentioned already, we had the opportunity to do the ribbon cutting and enjoy the grand opening of this fabulous facility a couple of weeks ago. And we're still enjoying the moment, so to speak. I know that we have dozens of our alumni, faculty, staff, and students with us today. Again, a very warm welcome. Of course, I want to extend a special welcome to the man behind this extraordinary center, Mr. Jim Swartz. The Swartz Center, which builds on the university's extraordinary legacy of entrepreneurship, has already had an extraordinary impact on CMU and our surrounding community. Folks, this didn't happen overnight. It's taken many, many years, and it goes back to the roots of CMU and what has made this institution successful. It's been bringing together cross-disciplinary educational programs, networking and funding opportunities, mentoring initiatives, and experiential learning over the last decade or two, all supported by the full power of the university and a number of you in this room actually who have contributed to that. The Swartz Center recognizes and celebrates the changing role of universities. And I've said this in a number of other occasions, that universities today are not only originators and keepers, but also engines for discovery and innovation. We don't just create knowledge and keep it, we also serve as engine of discovery and innovation. In fact, universities like ours play a central role in the innovation ecosystem, driving regional and national economic growth, and in turn, the economic development and societal needs drive and shape universities' research and academic mission in a virtuous cycle, as you heard Laurie talk about that. Thanks to the unique and catalyzing environment we've developed here over the years, CMU is becoming the academic destination for faculty and students and alum seeking a culture of entrepreneurship and opportunities to learn, conceive, collaborate, launch, and lead in new endeavors. In the last 5 years alone, just let me share with you a couple of anecdotal evidence of that. CMU has generated 1,900 invention disclosures, more than 1,500 patents, more than 1,300 licenses, options, and other agreements executed for more than 2,800 inventors. And since 2008, more than 280 companies have been launched directly or indirectly from CMU. And now with this spectacular new home in the Tepper Quad, the Swartz Center has brought entrepreneurship to the heart of the campus, catalyzing our capacity to create and commercialize interdisciplinary solutions to some of society's most complex challenges. Just a few minutes ago, right before we came in, a number of you were upstairs in the Swartz Center in the physical space, and it was full of energy. It was humming. It was exciting. And this is just typically what happens every day on campus today, and it's a physical realization of what's been happening on campus over the years. This space is already, of course, alive with the works of CMU students, faculty, staff, and alum as they pursue their great ideas. And of course, it will ensure that CMU's strength in entrepreneurship, technology transfer, and economic development continues to play a vital bridge from research to practice. Our strength in entrepreneurship, of course, has been thoughtfully developed throughout the years by so many dedicated individuals in this room especially. And in 2015, that foundation of excellence was propelled to even greater heights by the vision and generosity of Jim and Susan Swartz. Their $31 million gift that established the Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship as a campus-wide resource and provided support for extraordinary facility it would call home, the Tepper Quad. Their vision to provide a center to support entrepreneurial activities across campus will nurture leaders and idea makers for decades to come. Of course, Jim is an extraordinary entrepreneur and founder in his own right. Through his firm, Excel Partners, he has demonstrated a profound commitment to entrepreneurship through early investment of name brand companies that stream our music, store our files, and enhance our lives. But equally impressive is his commitment to giving back and providing opportunities to the next generation through education and mentoring. In particular, the James R. Swartz Fellows Program has been successfully nurturing talented students and inventors here on campus, and I think I have the date right, since 2005, since mid-2000, well over a decade. Swartz Fellows consistently share this opportunity, especially the immersive experience in Silicon Valley and San Francisco expands their vision of what's possible and transform their perspective on leadership. I've talked to students who've gone on these trips, and they refer to this as being truly transformative. This is just one example of Jim's devotion to Carnegie Mellon as an alum, donor, and of course, a visionary partner. He was also the first chair of the President's Global Advisory Council and has served on the Business School's Board of Advisors for the Tepper School. And just this past May, we had the honor of recognizing Jim with the CMU's inaugural Founders Medal, which recognizes both professional achievement and university service. Jim, I'm so grateful for all the ways your leadership has enhanced our community. As I invite you to join us at the podium, to say a few words. Also, I would like to offer a token of our appreciation and a remembrance of this exciting new chapter for the Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship. Jim, would you please join me on the stage? A few weeks ago, as you know, we had the ribbon cutting. We are pleased today to present to you this framed photo in remembering that event.
Thank you, President Janian. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate it. It's a really exciting day to be here. It's a milestone event for sure, but it really represents the culmination of many efforts over many years to enhance entrepreneurship at CMU. And I think you heard some of that from Dave, you heard it from Laurie, you heard some of it from our president. And all of these efforts have one and only one objective in my mind. That's to make Carnegie Mellon the destination of choice for the best entrepreneurs of the world. This is a model that I've seen play out in the venture world. What we do in the venture business is to try to cultivate an environment that has the best entrepreneurs who come to us. And we know if the best entrepreneurs come to us, then it's going to be a very bright future. So that's what this is all about. I've been observing the development of entrepreneurship. People have asked me, why did I do this and why now? I've really been working on this since the early 70s when I was offered a partnership in a CMU affiliated venture fund in 1972. And then I worked with the legendary Jack Thorne in the 80s and the 90s and helping him, coming back to give talks, lectures, always taking the pulse. And I've watched the entrepreneurship efforts grow over the years with the launch of the Don Jones Center, the McGinnis Venture Competition, Project Olympus, the Open Field Entrepreneur Fund, our Venture Bridge connection to Silicon Valley and New York. And most recently, I just learned about today the 99 Tartan's Angel Fund. So all of these things are a continuum. But our hope now is to take all of this to the next level. We are, simply put, in a new era. With the world-class faculty in technologies of the future, I think the time for Carnegie Mellon is today. There's no question that the center of most of the major technologies that are defining the world today are here at CMU. And CMU attracts world-class academic and research programs. Now these research programs will be matched by world-class entrepreneurship programs that emphasize team building, mentorship, leadership training, networking, and strong financial resources. Programs that provide entrepreneurs in residence to serve as active mentors, programs that provide continuous and active mentorship from a global network of successful executives, programs designed to bring classroom work into the real world, programs that actively build networks with other centers of excellence in Silicon Valley, in New York, and elsewhere, and programs that connect emerging ventures with world-class financial resources like Excel and other venture firms. It's an exciting time to be here. It's an exciting future. I'm proud to share it with everyone. I'd like to thank Dave Mawhinney and his team. They enable CMU entrepreneurs to achieve their dreams. Dave's infectious enthusiasm and leadership are an inspiration to us all. Special thanks to President Jahanian and Dean Damon for their continued support of these efforts. Thank you all.
Once again, thank you, Jim, for all that you've done to support this university and its entrepreneurial culture. Congratulations. With that perspective on the future of our program, I would like to talk a little bit about the theme of today's showcase, the role of science as a pervasive foundation for innovation. Science actually has been in our core at this university from the very beginning, dating back to when Andrew and Richard Mellon established Mellon Institute of Industrial Research in 1913. Actually, it was one of the first major science research centers in the United States. And of course, in 1967, as I'm sure all of you know, Mellon Institute merged with Carnegie Tech to form Carnegie Mellon University. Ever since that time, science has played a fundamental role in our research and education at the Mellon College of Science, as well as across the university, across almost every college at CMU. But especially over the past few years, the landscape of scientific research and education is rapidly changing, partially due to data and computational approaches that are transforming and accelerating discovery at a phenomenal rate, just about for every discipline. Science is also becoming increasingly dependent on people working and training together across disciplinary boundaries. Those trends are exactly where CMU excels. And at this exciting time for science, Science at CMU initiative at Carnegie Mellon is focused on embracing these new paradigms and leveraging our strength in order to leapfrog our competitors. There's no better example of how CMU is dissolving silos than the Tepper Quad and the Swartz Center and the work that we're doing here as part of our entrepreneurial activities, where innovators from all across CMU come together to collaborate on groundbreaking ideas and new ventures. Today, we're proud to showcase and highlight our commitment to data-driven discovery and cross-disciplinary collaboration in the sciences. These upcoming presentations present only a handful of exciting developments taking place at CMU every day through its education and, of course, research enterprise through various programs that we have on campus. Of course, one of the core foundations, I should go back, of the entrepreneurial ecosystem for more than a decade here at CMU has been Project Olympus, the premier incubator at CMU that Lenore Blum founded in 2007. To date, Project Olympus has helped more than 152 companies, and growing, get off ground. Lenore Blum has been driving entrepreneurial activities at this university throughout her career. For those of you who are long-term CMU colleagues and alum know this. Many of the core programs available to students across campus including the Olympus Incubator, but also the Spark Grants Program, Innovation Fellows, and the National Science Foundation I-Corps program, owe their beginning to Lenore's dedication in building them from ground up through writing proposals, securing funding, and of course, setting up operations over the years. Her 2010 Olympus White Paper has been the basis for many grants, including the 2012 $15 million McEwen Big Ideas grant that enabled the foundation of some of the activities at CMU, including the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Lenore, a distinguished professor in computer science, is a fellow of the American Mathematical Society. In 2017, she was elected a fellow of the Association for Women in Mathematics in their inaugural class. Lenore also, it's important for me to note, as a fellow computer scientist, also has played a very central role in the recruitment of women to the School of Computer Science and to Carnegie Mellon. And this has actually been a national role that Lenore has played since the 1970s, and her impact is undeniable. Her leadership has been instrumental in transforming the culture of computing at Carnegie Mellon to embrace diversity as critical to the field and, of course, to our society and to our nation. She founded a mentorship organization, Women at SCS, to create, encourage, and support women's academic, social, professional opportunities in computer science. Today, Lenore is joining us to introduce some of the phenomenal students who have succeeded through Project Olympus. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor Lenore Blum. Lenore.
So thank you, Farnham, for that lovely introduction. And thank you, Jim, for being such a good friend to Carnegie Mellon. Kit Needham has been my partner in crime at Project Olympus for over 10 years now, and is now director of Project Olympus. Thank you, Kit. It's been a great ride. I want to acknowledge Kit. And thank you, Andrew Moore, if you're here. My dean, for all your support. You are my hero. And thanks to our many supporters and partners over the years, it's immensely gratifying to see you here today, if I could see you, but the lights are in the way. Let's see. Okay, so last week I was at the Grace Hopper celebration of women in computing in Houston with 40 of our computer science students and over 20,000 other women in tech. Yes, an amazing, energizing event. Okay, there were probably 50 more Carnegie Mellon people there as well, so that was fabulous. On Friday morning, while we were listening to Anita Hill speak at Grace Hopper, the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee voted to bring the Kavanaugh vote to the floor in the afternoon. A Twilight Zone experience, if there ever was one. I was watching both. But then one good man spoke up. I don't go back as far as Jim with entrepreneurship at Carnegie Mellon, but let me give you a little of my background here. In January 2005, I proposed Project Olympus at a meeting of the Pittsburgh Technology Council. My vision was to create a sandbox where students and faculty could try out their ideas and connect with the business community. Innovation fellows, grad students or postdocs in faculty labs, would bridge the gap between cutting-edge university research and the innovation economy. Buoyed by the feedback I got, I wrote an NSF proposal and asked Chris Gabriel of the Heinz Endowments to be on my advisory board. Chris said no. First of all, she said she wanted to fund it. And besides, she said NSF never would. That's true. That was way before the I-Corps program. I knew very few people in the regional innovation ecosystem then. You know, of course, I was a theoretical computer science and mathematician. doing my work here on campus. But luckily, 2 more women, Catherine Mott of Blue Tree Angels and Patty Tascarilla of the Pittsburgh Business Times, and immediately plugged me in. A few days before our first Olympus show and tell in June 2007, Patty wrote an article announcing the event. As a result, the house was packed. At the time, there were few, if any, such events in Pittsburgh, and certainly none at Carnegie Mellon. 2 of our Olympus teams who were just starting out, Luis Fanon and Matt Humphrey, presented. As Farnham said, in 2010, I wrote a white paper that became a basis for the McCune Big Ideas Grant. That grant supports an endowment for our Innovation Fellows program, what I had sort of suggested many years before, that provides $50,000 awards annual to the best and the brightest. You will hear from some shortly. Amber Lucas, Clint Nowak, and Tonia Simakova. Indeed, it is my pleasure to introduce some of our newest STEM entrepreneurs. All have participated in our Olympus and I-Corps program, as have 25 of the demos that you see in the exhibition upstairs. So as I introduce each of you, would you please stand up? Innovation Fellow Amber Lucas. I'm going to introduce everybody at first, and then they can do their talk. I'm going to let you hear them very soon. Innovation Fellow Amber Lucas is co-founder of Impact Proteomics, a CMU spinoff. She is a graduate student in the Department of Biological Sciences. Her thesis work focused on developing tools for researchers who work with difficult protein samples. Thanasis Karmelaitis and Clint Nowak, where's Clint? Oh, back there, okay, are co-founders of Anactosys, an I-Corps team and CMU spinoff. They are developers of the company's separation technologies for recovery of critical materials from large volume industrial waste, and I'll let them tell about that. So Clint is an Innovation Fellow working with Dr. Karmelaitis. That was part of the model, an Innovation Fellow in a faculty lab. Innovation Fellow Tonia Simakova is founder and director of research and development of Biohybrid Systems, an I-Corps team and CMU spinoff, focused on the commercialization of protein stabilization platform. I don't tell where everybody comes from, but I thought this was interesting. She received a BS in chemical technology from the Mendeleev University of Chemical Technology of Russia, and holds a PhD in chemistry from CMU. During her graduate research, she has worked on polymer-based technology which can transform enzymes into efficient catalysts useful in pharmaceutical, chemical, and biofuel industries, and she'll tell you soon. And finally, we're going to hear from David Lupke, founder and CEO of LumaShield Technology. He's a special faculty in the chemistry department. He holds a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Pittsburgh. LumaShield, an I-Corps team and spin-off company, again from Carnegie Mellon, and the National Energy Technology Laboratories, has introduced a novel aluminum electroplating process that has the potential to displace many less sustainable technologies based on heavy metals and phosphates. All are really impressive. Each of their successful companies started with an idea. They were inspired, empowered, and given the resources right here. And they will now inspire others. Here they are. Enjoy the LaunchCMU showcase.
All right. Thank you, Lenore. And thank you all for being here and for this opportunity. The Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship has supported me as a scientist who had an idea and really wanted to transform by taking that idea to commercialization. And so my company is called Impact Proteomics, where we're creating protein sample preparation kits that enable people to work with difficult samples. And so I'll talk a bit about that. And so proteins are our bread and butter, and that's because these are the nanomachines of the body that do all the jobs that keep you alive. Whether you're taking aspirin for a headache or a life-saving chemotherapy, these drugs target proteins. And so that's why proteins are used for most drug or biomarker discovery. Oops, sorry. And you can think about this kind of discovery as like a find the difference game, where a lot of times you have healthy proteins and proteins from a disease state, and you're trying to find the differences. And so you kind of start with a very complex picture and then, narrow it down to a few potentially important proteins that are changing. But it can be really difficult in the real world because usually the picture that you're starting with looks something like this, where everything's kind of fuzzy, some of the information is just completely missing, and it makes it almost impossible to find those important proteins that can be, life-saving targets. And so if we're thinking about finding a target where the gray represents the proteins that we can see with the techniques we have now, and the black represents everything we don't know, if you want to find a true drug target or a true biomarker, you have a really low chance of success. And if your drug target or biomarker is over here in this black box, you're never going to find it. And that's why drugs are so expensive. The average time for a discovery is 3 to 10 years. $4 to $30 million is spent, and you have less than a 1% chance of finding anything. And so most end in failure, and drugs are expensive because we have to compensate for that failure. But the most important part of any discovery process is the very beginning, when you're identifying candidates that could be important for disease. And so if we look at this very first phase, there are 3 main steps: sample preparation, sample analysis, and data analysis. And while sample analysis and data analysis have seen tons of innovation over the past 30 years, we still do sample preparation like we did it in the 70s. And this leads to a whole list of problems. And you can imagine that if you start with a bad sample, any analysis you do of that sample is going to be garbage. And so we wanted to transform sample preparation for proteins. And we wanted to do that because we've seen how standardization of sample preparation can change the world. DNA and RNA, you can just buy a kit at a store, purify all of the DNA and RNA you need to do any kind of genomics or transcriptomics. And, companies have been really successful at doing this. But we haven't done this for proteins, and that's because proteins are much more complicated. If you look at DNA and RNA, they're even just structurally, they look very similar, and every strand of DNA is the same. But proteins come in all different shapes, sizes, charges. They do all kinds of different things. So how can you find a way to purify all of the proteins at the same time? Well, the way we did it is by taking advantage of their natural surface chemistry. And so if you imagine that these circles represent proteins that are in a sample, and the gray things represent stuff you want to get rid of, we've created a chemical tag that reacts with the surface of every protein. And by reacting with every protein, we can then pull those proteins out of solution like a magnet. And once they're immobilized onto this magnetic surface, we can just wash away everything that we don't want, everything that's going to interfere with our analysis. And once we've done that, this chemistry is reversible. So now we can release those proteins back into solution to be recovered. And so essentially what we've tried to do is make something that ensures every workflow will start with a high-quality sample. So it's so important that you start with something good so you can get good results. Something where you can observe all proteins. We want to make that black box visible. We want to identify candidates faster, get drugs to market faster. We want higher statistical confidence so that we have a higher than 1% chance of finding something important. And we want to accelerate time to market for these high-impact therapies. And so we're beginning beta testing in 2019. We just submitted an NSF SBIR grant. We're listening to hear back about that. And I'll be graduating in December, and that's when the real work starts. And so I don't have a poster or a table, but I will be walking around, so I would love to talk to any of you about what we're doing at Impact Proteomics. Thank you.
Hello. I won't be as geeky as Amber, but I will definitely tell you a little bit about our technology. I'm Thanasis Karamalidis, and I'm excited to present and represent Anactysys today. Anactysys comes from the Greek word to recover and reclaim, and you will find out why in a minute. So I always ask myself the question, how I would like to see the technologies and materials advancing in the future. And I will return that question to you, and I will ask you, would it be great if we had high-intensity lamps that lit our stadiums? Better 3D printing with materials that are lighter and stronger, or have cheaper commercial space flights, or even aerospace industry can use stronger and lighter aluminum alloys. And when I say about stronger and lighter aluminum alloys, I mean to extend that if you substitute with a new aluminum alloy the fleet of Boeing 747, you will be saving about $35 billion from the fuels alone for the lifespan of the fleet. Would it be better if we had a nicer heat exchange capacitor for the automotive industry, or high-efficiency lasers for our navigation systems, or for our defense systems? All of those can be doable. They can be realized by including and incorporating one element in these applications. And this element is scandium. It has been technically proven that if you integrate scandium with electrolytes, it can lower the operational temperatures for the solid oxide fuel cells. It can provide 3 times higher efficiency than other garnets for lasers. It can also make alloys stronger. And when I say stronger, because they use minute amounts of scandium in the alloys, they make it even lighter. And I'll give you an example. The 5000 series of scandium, aluminum, magnesium alloys have 150% higher strength. And if you go down to 1000 series, that strength increases by 1500%. You can imagine that this is a very nice element, because also gives acid corrosion resistance to different alloys and increases weldability, where our robots can take over and be more efficiently making structures with these alloys. And finally, it has been proven that has advanced anodization. So your new smartphones and tablets that they have aluminum casing, there will be stronger, lighter, and they will have fancy colors on it. But the problem is this: there is no production of scandium in the US. And it's not only that we don't have any production of scandium in the US, there is no secure Western supply of scandium. And if I want to push it even further, the global supply for scandium is 10 to 20 tons. That's it. But if you compare that to the estimated tonnage of scandium that we need, the latent demand of scandium that we need for all these applications, we are looking at about 2,800 tons annually. So Anactysys can do something for that. What we do, and this is how the name of the company comes from, we separate and we recover scandium and other valuable minerals from large volume industrial waste, like fly ash, bauxite residues, titanium oxide tailings, phosphate tailings, mining tailings, and so forth. Now we are very focused on fly ash because we can produce 2 sellable products. One is on-spec fly ash, which is very much in need for the fly ash marketers, for the cement industry, and also pure scandium for all these applications. The way that we do that, and I will be a little bit geeky here, is we take the fly ash, we mix it with acids, and then we separate the solids from the liquids. The solids go to the fly ash marketers for the cement industry, and the liquids go to our proprietary adsorbent A, where we have innovated the chemistry of solid phase adsorbents without any neutralization. We don't do anything. We take this nasty acid and we pass it through the adsorbent, and we very selectively pull out scandium and the rare earth elements from the rest of the solution. We then elute that, and we send it to adsorbent B, which is again selective to scandium and the rare earth elements. And what we have innovated most recently is that we can get 3 different products out of it: rare earth element mix, uranium, and pure phase of scandium. So now we are in this phase that we are actively seeking to raise funds for our first small-scale pilot plant. That pilot plant will produce enough quantity, scandium quantity, for qualification purposes, as well as fly ash for the fly ash marketers, which will be a nice revenue for us. Again, I'm Thanas Karamalidis, co-founder of Anactysys, and I'm here with my co-founder, Clint Nowak, down there, and as well as some of our colleagues, Jane and Luke. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here at the opening of Swartz Center, and I'm very eager to tell you about our company called Biohybrid Solutions. At Biohybrid Solutions, we're making nano-armored enzymes. Enzymes are a type of proteins, and thank you, Amber, for telling everyone what proteins are, so I don't have to. And we're specifically interested in enzymes because they have incredible abilities to catalyze or accelerate broad range of chemical reactions. That means that we can use them in a variety of applications. For instance, enzymes are used in detergents. You can process clothing with them. They're broadly utilized in the food industry. And you can also make very complex and life-saving chemicals using them, like antibiotics, for instance. So obviously, enzymes are very useful, and enzyme industry is booming. However, enzymes do suffer from one major limitation, and that's their stability. So for instance, every time you cook an egg for breakfast, what you actually do, you expose protein present in egg, and you denature them. Well, in the case of your breakfast, you end up with something which tastes good. In the case of industrial application of enzymes, you end up with product which lost all of its catalytic valuable properties. And that's where our company come in. Alan Russell and Chris Matuszewski, who are co-founders of the company, while collaborating at CMU, came up with a very efficient way of how to create protective polymer coating on the surface of an enzyme. And essentially, this protective polymer coating acts as a nano-armor. This nano-armor ensures that enzyme preserves its valuable properties even under harsh processing, for instance, under high temperature. When we started our company about 2 years ago, we were very excited to see that, in fact, there are a lot of demand and interest in such stabilized enzymes. We launched our first product development in 2016 with a grant from Department of Energy, where we developed a new process which is more efficient and more sustainable for production of biofuels. We also recently started working in the field of green synthesis, which gains a lot of momentum also both in specialty chemicals and pharmaceutical industries. We're also very excited that recently we started working on a big collaborative project related to therapeutic applications of such stabilized enzymes. We truly believe that application of our technology can be beneficial for broad range of applications of enzymes. And we're very excited to grow our company in a variety of directions, and hopefully we can go from number of applications we're pursuing now now into areas like diagnostics, food industry, and medical devices. So when we started the company, it was just 3 of us, Alan, Chris, and I. And since then, we grew to a bigger team. We have a lot of exciting projects going on, a lot of collaborations. And then I would like to say that it's been really challenging, but incredible journey for me to try to build research I've done as a graduate student in a commercial application. And I can't really say enough thank you to Carnegie Mellon University support, and specifically Swartz Center. It really helped us to jumpstart our company and move our academia research into the world of industry. Thank you.
Okay, so Dave Lepke, LumaShield Technologies. LumaShield's been around about 4 years. I think the very first thing that I did after I quit my old job at Department of Energy to work with the company was come to LaunchCMU. I gotta tell you, I love these events. I love them because you get to sit around and listen to the entrepreneurs talk about their ideas and their technologies, and you get to think about what the world's gonna be like when they take off. But when I was asked to pitch, I was very excited, but I was also a little conflicted because at LumaShield, that's not what we do at all, right? We are commercializing a tiny little tweak to a very popular manufacturing process that happens to cut the pollution that it produces by a great deal and decrease the cost for our customers and manufacturers. So if we do our jobs perfectly, 99 people out of 100 will never hear of LumaShield. But the world will still be a better place. So I'll tell you a little bit about that, and we'll see if you agree that maybe we can change the world quietly. So we don't think about corrosion at all, really, until our car gets scratched and it starts to rust, or we have to sit for 2 hours on the parkway because they've shut it down because rusty chunks are falling off of the bridge that goes over the top of the parkway. It's all around us all the time, though, to the extent that the National Association of Corrosion Engineers tells us about 3% of global GDP just rusts away every year. We built our society on steel, and that's the cost, $2.3 trillion annually. We got to be doing something about that. I mean, we've had a couple thousand years to solve this problem, right? And we're doing a lot of things, but one of the big things that we're doing is taking the steel and coating it in other metals. Those metals protect it, right? So unfortunately, most of those metals tend to be toxic heavy metals like chromium, cadmium, that kind of thing. So the environmental cost of corrosion turns out to be nearly as high as the dollar cost. It's not an accident that we pick those particular metals to use. One very good way of efficiently putting a protective layer of metals onto the surface of a steel part is to make a solution of the metal, put the part that you want to protect in it, hit it with an electrical current, and bam, protective coating. Easy, cheap. Cadmium and chromium, they're really easy to electroplate, so we spend a lot of time using them. There are lots of other metals that are out there that could be used, things like aluminum, titanium, zirconium, much less toxic, but also much harder to electroplate. In fact, impossible to electroplate from water, at least until LumaShield came along. My business partner, Professor Hunayd Nawala, figured out how to electroplate these other metals out of water. And suddenly, you can use exactly the same equipment that you used before to make heavy metal coatings to make these much more sustainable coatings. So the guys from LumaShield will come to your shop if you're making these coatings. We'll sell you new plating solution, which is a consumable for you anyway, so it's not really a big deal to replace. We'll make some tweaks to your process, and now you're making coatings that don't cost any more to produce. Use exactly your same expertise, and there's not a single toxic chemical used in the process. So that's the technology, and it has applications simply everywhere. Our first product is called Lumidized. It's an undercoating for paints that replaces another coating that's a big environmental problem. Huge applications in the automotive industry and aerospace and marine. It's probably about a $15 billion a year market just based on that stuff. What have we done with this so far? Well, it took us a while to get the technology right. It took us about 3 years. We finally managed to do that about this time last fall. Fortunately, that meant that we've had a lot of time to plan, so we could move very quickly from there. And this summer, we had our first commercial demonstration of the technology. We'll do a larger scale commercial demo coming up later this year. 2019, we're raising money because the government and local seed stage investors, those sorts of folks have helped us out tremendously with getting the technology ready. But those are the kinds of things that don't really get you to the full manufacturing scale. So we'll be setting up very, very light manufacturing and sales and marketing. We expect to have our first 10 sales of full-scale production lines in 2019, and we'll be rapidly scaling into this much bigger $15 billion market in the years after that. So that's it. Limit Shield Technologies. We're making the world a better place, but we're doing it quietly.
Thank you, David. That was awesome. And thanks to all four of the speakers. There's just some amazing things that are going on here at Carnegie Mellon. You got a glimpse today of a side of Carnegie Mellon that we don't always see. We're all into robotics and AI and autonomous vehicles, but deep science at CMU is real, and there's a lot more to come in the coming years from that side. That concludes the speaking portion of today's program. We'd like to invite you to come upstairs to see the beautiful Swartz Center space. We'll have food, drink, and receptions, and there's 30 different startups that are up there from the different disciplines at Carnegie Mellon. One last thanks to Jim and Susan Swartz for the amazing space and programming that they provided for us. And thank you to our sponsors, Latham & Watkins, Oracle, and Insperity, but also just a couple other people who made today's events happen. From University Events, Helen Ewing, she's back in the back, I can see her there, and Sophie Elias from University Marketing. Appreciate it. Oh, there she is. And our program managers from the Swartz Center, Sonia Ford and Alex Petkoff. If you see them upstairs, give them a pat on the back. They've worked like dogs for the last week getting this all together. They're amazing people, and we're very proud of them. So thank you all very much for coming. Please come upstairs, level 3, to see the Swartz Center space. I think it'll leave you breathless. Have a great day. Bye-bye.